Alright, somebody wanted me to read like a daily proverb. Today is October 18th, and it's 6 in the morning right now, 6 a.m. So I'm going to read Proverbs 18. There's 24 verses, and I think that I want to read it and just comment on anything if I can, and I don't know if I can really give a great in-depth commentary on any of this. The Proverbs kind of, to me, they need a lot of breaking down, and it's stuff that I would like to look into deeper, but I'm gonna read through it. Maybe I'll just read through it. I don't know if I can't comment on anything, but just saying, more than likely I'd like to say something instead of this just being like an audio Bible reading of it, which is fine too, but because I want to think about it as I'm reading it too. I just don't want to read it just to read it, so for me to comment on it is like me kind of pondering on it myself. But this would be something cool to do every day, but I don't know if I will. I don't want to make any promises as far as that, but it's something for me to think about. So, I don't know if I'll do the 19th for tomorrow. I might not. Depends on what's going on, I guess. But we'll see. But Proverbs 18, and I'm not sure if Solomon wrote this one or not, because I'm using an app on my phone. That's what I'm recording this on, and I don't have any of the notes or comments that would say, because I know that not all the Proverbs are from Solomon, but I'm kind of guessing that this one is, maybe, because some of the earlier ones. How many Proverbs are there? I don't know. I'm going to guess maybe this is. It says, verse 1, through desire a man having separated himself seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. Through desire a man having separated himself seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. And so what's it mean to separating himself through desire? Meaning, does it mean kind of somebody who is like self-aware, like we're looking inside ourselves, like can't think of the words right now. Somebody who's like pondering about their own person, seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. So somebody who's really looking at themselves, not somebody living day to day, not really having a care with their actions or their behaviors. Part 2, verse 2 says, a fool hath no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover itself. And so, like, the fool is just looking for pleasure, not looking to stop and ponder on these things. So, a person who is wise is someone who more is, some of these words are like on the tip of my tongue, but I can't, like, a wise person is more looking at their inner self and pondering things, around them and inside them. And, I should have prayed before this, and I'll just stop and do that now. Dear Lord, thank you for your word. We love your word, and please guide us as we read this proverb and help us to understand, Lord, and what you intend for us to learn from this. Help us to apply it to our lives. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Okay, so let's go back and let's just go to verse 3. When the wicked cometh, then cometh also contempt, and with ignominy reproach. ignominy. I don't really understand, know what that word means. It's when the wicked cometh, then cometh also contempt. Think of contempt kind of as anger, um, and with some kind of reproach. Is so it says with the wicked cometh contempt, and then with ignominy reproach. It makes me think it's like ignominy, like ignoramus, like I don't know. Is that like is that kind of like a comparison, like the wicked contempt, and then with somebody who's ignorant reproach? So this is, and it's kind of like repeating the same thing, kind of. These are bad. I'm thinking like these are bad things. The words of a man's mouth are as deep waters, and the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. Makes me think of James talking about, the tongue, how it's like a rudder on a ship, and so forth. The words of a man's mouth are as deep waters, and the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. Interesting. And kind of wondering, I see how it talks about the fool's mouth in verse 7. I'm kind of wondering, like, is all of this kind of meant to be together as an idea, or is this like each verse kind of like throwing out something kind of separate from each other? And what does it mean that the words of a man's mouth are as deep waters? The wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. Deep waters, does it mean like depths? They can be like very impactful. Is it like the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook? Just something that kind of like brings life or aid to others. It's a good thing, thinking. Now I'm going to skip forward to verse 5. It is not good to accept the person of the wicked, to overthrow the righteous in judgment. It is not good to accept the person of the wicked, to overthrow the righteous in judgment. So, I don't know, that just sounds kind of like unjust to me. It's not good to be unjust. It's not good to condemn the righteous and to let the wicked go. And because I get stuck on certain topics all the time, this just makes me think of another verse that kind of condemns this idea of a penal substitutionary atonement where Jesus gets the punishment for the sins of the world, where he is punished in the stead of everybody else. And so him being sinless, being judged as a sinner, being punished for the sins, doesn't seem right. To overthrow the righteous judgment. But verse 6, a fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calleth for strokes. The fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calls for strokes. So, the fool's lips write checks that they can't cash. I guess that, somebody who just runs their mouth. And that's kind of like the situation that I talked about in a recent prayer video where, I'm upset at some people that open their mouths and say things, that bother me. But, I have to, on the other end of things, control my tongue, because I know that anything that I say, you can have these little fantasies to where, you're going to say something to somebody and it's going to have this certain effect or whatever, but like in reality, it's not. And and just opening your mouth just causes more problems. And so, but fools don't think, and fools don't care, and they just will say whatever and get into all kinds of trouble. So, verse 7, a fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. I've always been more of a kind of quiet, I guess, I don't know, kind of one of the words I was trying to think of was like introspective or intro perspective. I don't know. Those probably aren't words, but you probably know what I'm trying to say. But I guess a lot of people have said, I'm like the deep thinker type. I'm like the silent type. And doesn't necessarily mean that I'm wise or anything, but I'm just used to that, not speaking. There's times when, I don't speak when I should, I guess, but there's a difference. There's people that, and I've opened my mouth foolishly plenty of times, but, there's people that do it more often than others. But a fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. The words of a talebearer are as wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly. And so we see one of those ways in which a person's mouth can get them into some kind of troubles, I guess. Talebearing. The words of a talebearer are as wounds. They go down into the innermost parts of the belly. But I guess, at the same time, talebearer is just like somebody who's opening their mouths in ways that they shouldn't, I suppose, too. But I'm trying to kind of think of more what this is trying to say still. The words of a talebearer are as wounds. They go down into the innermost parts of the belly. Now, is it as wounds to other people, or to themselves, or to both? And I mean, we know that it can be both. I think, but it's talking about how the fool's kind of like to his own destruction. And we see how there's so much figures of speech in the Bible. And it talks about how it goes down to the innermost parts of his belly, like it's some kind of a physical thing. But like these are like deep wounds that can really be damaging to people's lives. It talks about how it's the snare of his soul in verse 7. Verse 9, he also that is slothful in his work is brother to him that is a great waster. That's wow. He that is slothful in his work is brother to him that is a great waster. Talking about being lazy and talking about wasting. And I guess being lazy is wasting time, I guess. But these are just two bad habits, I guess, two bad things that people do. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. Now, that's a pretty popular Bible verse there, I think. That's one of those memorization verses, Proverbs 18:10. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. Something to remember. And, again, it's just so interesting the way that everything's worded, and I always want to break things down and think about it. Where he talks about the name of the Lord. We're not just talking about a name. We're talking about, the Lord being a strong tower. And so it's interesting, like, how things are worded to get these ideas across. I guess this is how they spoke. This is how they expressed themselves. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. And so it seems like, again, it's like, how does this tie into verse 9? It's kind of like, it seems like there's just different kind of ideas kind of being thrown out here. Like, there's the ways of the wicked, and then there's the ways of the righteous. And verse 11, the rich man's wealth is his strong city, and as an high wall in his own conceit. And as an high wall in his own conceit. And so, it's like, I don't think a lot of times there's this conception that, we read about how the love of money is the root of all evil, and it talks about, have these conceptions that, people with a lot of money are automatically evil or something, or that money itself is automatically evil, and that's not what this is expressing, but it's like somebody who trusts in their wealth. It's somebody who, their money, their wealth is their God, and that's just carnal, and it's going to come to naught, and it's going to be their own destruction if that's what their God is. So there's plenty of people who had money, and like the kings, like King David, and King Solomon, who King Solomon had plenty of issues, but there's still God-fearing people that are wealthy. But the people who trust in their wealth to this degree, to where it is their God, that's going to be their downfall. Verse 12, before destruction the heart of man is haughty, and before honor is humility. Before destruction the heart of man is haughty, and before honor is humility. So, it seems like this is kind of like a reverse. And so it's basically like, if you're a haughty person, then you're headed towards destruction. If you're a humble person, then you will be honored. Is kind of how I'm getting it. So it's saying before, meaning kind of these kind of ways of living, these attitudes are what lead to these things. And I'm thinking about like the honor and the humility, and it's like, well, does the world always honor people who are humble? Does the world always honor humility? Sometimes yes, but not always. But it is honored by God. It's truly honored. Acts of humility, even when people don't see or know about it, and only God sees it or whatever, and it's an honor. And there's lots of ways of destruction for these people that have these traits too of being haughty and such. And, maybe not always in big ways. Maybe, they seem to be somebody who is, wealthy and doing well and loved by everybody and so forth. And they could be like the most haughtiest person in the world. And they could be, a celebrity and seem like things are good, but, you know, things aren't as they appear, and there is destruction brewing there, like, within them, within their relationships, with different areas of their lives. And, but, humility is to be honored, and, we should honor humility, when we see it, too. I think we should recognize that. Verse 13, he that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and a shame unto him. I've heard Brian Denlinger repeat that one over and over again. And I've used it, I think, because of him. It's funny. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. And it's so true, though. I mean, besides like Brian Denlinger abusing it or whatever to, people should hear people out, but there's so many people that just speak on subjects they don't even understand or know. And we all do it, and I do it. But man, it can be aggravating sometimes, especially when people, want to talk about the Bible or Christianity, right? If they're not familiar with anything, but they want to be like an authority on it. And it's like, you don't even know what you're talking about. But it's just folly and a shame unto them and unto us when we do it. So we just try not to do that. We try to learn and have understanding and to be quiet and to listen. Especially things that we don't know about. We should be more open to hearing. 14. The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but a wounded spirit who can bear? That one is a little bit confusing to me. The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but a wounded spirit who can bear? So I don't know if the first one talking about a healthy spirit of a man. I don't know. It's not good to be a wounded spirit, I guess. I'll just continue on to the next one. That's something I should look into more. Verse 15, the heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge. The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge. So I think just knowledge is something that we should seek. Knowledge and understanding. It's mentioned many, many times in Proverbs all over the place. Those words you see, knowledge and understanding. And, it's kind of what I just talked about, kind of relates to that, being ignorant on certain subjects. And, instead of just, pretending that we're know-it-alls all the time about everything. There's lots of times when we need to be learning and we need to know more before we speak. A man's gift maketh room for him and bringeth him before great men. That's a man's gift maketh room for him. I don't really get that one at all. A man's gift. I don't know. Hmm. I mean, if there's like great men coming to him, and then he must be gifted in some way. Is it talking about like a gift, like, like a talent or a skill, or, a gift of understanding or wisdom? What does exactly mean, maketh room for him? I'm thinking that, you know, I'm thinking maketh room for him means kind of like a better life in a way, more opportunities, more possibilities. Because bringeth him before great men, I'm thinking brings him before like the kings and uh, men of higher reverence in society or whatever, or interested. Oh, it's kind of a complex verse. Let's continue on to 17. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him. It says he seems just, but his neighbor comes to see if that is true. I don't know. Again, that one's kind of a little bit over my head. But it's like, there's the idea of being checked up on by somebody else. Always a possibility that somebody else is going to check us, or that other people are going to be checked by other people for the truth. Let's go on to verse 18. Sorry, probably too close to the fan. The lot causeth contentions to cease, and parteth between the mighty. Again, I don't really know. And I'm not sure if some of these ideas are kind of going together. What does it mean? The lot causeth contention to cease. A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city. and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. So, it's saying that a person who is offended, who's angry, upset over some issue or something, could be very hard to change their mind, to get their trust back, or to, you know, to repair whatever relationship was there. It's not going to be easy. So you don't want that. You don't want to offend brother. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth, and with the increase of his lips shall be filled. Shall he be filled? Again, not really sure a whole lot what that's talking about. So moving on to the next one. Verse 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Well, that goes back to verse 20 when it was talking about the fruit of his mouth, the fruit thereof. I guess the fruit is what is like spawned from, the words that we say. So it could be bad fruit, it could be good fruit, depending on, how we use our tongue, how we use our mouths, the words that we say. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Good things and bad things. Good, words that can uplift other people, or words that can tear down other people. Words that can maybe justify us in a way, or maybe words that can condemn us in a way. And they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. I don't know. It makes me want to think that, they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. And going back to verse 20 where it talks about being satisfied with the fruit of his mouth and with the increase of his lips, he shall be filled. So maybe, using your words, using your tongue in a positive way to uplift other people, and, to praise God and to do everything, good that we can with our words is satisfying to us. It's good for us. And the more that we, say more uplifting, positive things to help others and to praise God, then, the more satisfied we'll be. Maybe I'm totally off with that. I don't know. But, and so that's really, truly the way of life. And so, to use our words to condemn other people, to tear down other people, to speak hatred and stuff, that's like the way of death. And that's not going to be satisfying. That's kind of the way that I see it. But verse 22, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and obtaineth favor of the Lord. Could that be said of today's society? I'm just kidding. It's That's a good, straightforward verse. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot that has to be said about that. But yeah, finding a good wife, a partner, that's, there you go. Verse 23. The poor useth entreaties, but the rich answereth roughly. And another verse that I don't totally get. Entreaties? Does that mean kind of like begging, like they're looking for help? Or the rich are answering roughly. And it just seems so odd how it just skips from like one, like talking about he that findeth the wife findeth a good thing, and then it's like the poor useth entreaties, and it's just like the ideas are kind of all over the place here. Let's go to the final verse. A man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. And, it's like if you're not friendly, you're not going to get friends. And I've kind of been thinking about a lot of this stuff lately, how, people have different personality issues, and we all struggle with things, but, there are some people that are, like, more selfish than other people, and they're always going to have problems with relationships, building friendships and stuff like that, because they really, I talked about narcissists before, like a narcissistic personality disorder, where, it's somebody who's kind of like selfish to the extreme, and they don't really have empathy for other people, and, they're not going to be able to really build friendships. Because, they're not really friendly. They can't really share emotions and stuff like people do to connect to one another, and they're only concerned about themselves. And so, it's going to be harder for them to have real friends and to keep them. And there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. Maybe, that final phrase is just to say that, friends can be a really good thing. A lot of people put too much emphasis on friends, or, sometimes they're really just acquaintances or whatever. But, a lot of people some people are just way too social, and they just think that, they've always got to be around different people and involved with all these different people and everything. But it is definitely good to have friends, and a lot of people, in your lifetimes, a lot of times people only have like a few really close friends that they really rely on, that they've really stuck around with for a long time. A lot of people change and move away, and stuff happens, and but it is good to have friends, and they're, especially like someone like me who's an only child. I've never had siblings. Don't know what that's like growing up with other brother or sister in the house and sharing stuff with them. So for me, it was always about having friends, and I've had close friends throughout the years who I've kind of parted from. But, that's what it was like growing up, staying the night at each other's houses, and playing video games and stuff, and sharing everything with each other. And so that was like, my version of having a sibling. And, I've got a cousin that I'm really close to, and I consider him, he's my cousin, but, we're really good friends. Because there's plenty of cousins that I have that, I don't even really communicate with much. But, but yeah, there are certain people in your life that, might not be a biological sibling, but they are, the person that's really close to you. And so it is good to have people to talk to grow with, to share with, the good and the bad. And so that's what I think it means when it says there's a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. It's like, a man that hath friends must show himself friendly. So it's saying you should be friendly to have friends. And it's saying there is worth in having a friend, because you can have a friend that's, so close to you that can, stand there with you through the test of time. And, you can help each other. So, it says, earlier it said, a wife is a good thing. And, it's also saying, hey, a friend is a good thing. And so, God doesn't want us to be alone in this world. Obviously, it ultimately comes down to us and God. But God created, Adam and Eve, and He wanted the human race to populate, and He doesn't want us to, necessarily experience life alone. But there are times when people are going to be alone, and we always have God. But He wants us to interact with other humans. So, anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm glad, brother, that you told me that you wanted me to do that. So I hope that somebody hears this and gets something out of it, and just go over these verses yourself and think more about them. And if there's something that you think that you can contribute to these verses, and comment it. So God bless.